Story 1. I was being hunted by a bear in the woods. The thing that saved me was so much worse. I've always been a hiker. Not just casually. I love the solitude. I love the feeling of being a small, insignificant part of something vast and ancient. The quiet of a forest is a kind of sacred space for me. Or at least, it used to be. Yesterday, I decided to explore a remote section of the Greenhorn Mountains. It's a rugged, beautiful area that doesn't see much foot traffic. I parked my car at a dusty trailhead, clipped on my pack, and headed into the wild. The first few hours were blissful. The air was cool and smelled of pine and damp earth. The only sounds were the wind in the trees, the chatter of squirrels, and the rhythmic crunch of my boots on the trail. It was perfect. I was about 5 miles in, deep into a section of dense, old-growth forest, when I first heard it. It was a crunch. A heavy one. Anyone who spends time in the woods learns to interpret sounds. A squirrel is a light, frantic skitter. A deer, a soft snap of a twig, then silence. This was different. This was the sound of significant weight deliberately snapping a fallen branch. It came from off to my left, behind a thick stand of fir trees. I stopped, ears straining, scanning the woods. Nothing. I told myself it was probably a buck. A big one. I kept walking, maybe a little faster. 100 yards later, I heard it again. Crunch. Closer this time. And it was followed by the sound of something large pushing through the brush, a heavy shush 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 as it moved through the undergrowth. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a deer. This was something big. I slowly, carefully, turned my head. And I saw it. Through a gap in the trees, maybe 60 or 70 yards back, was a bear. A large black bear. Not just large, enormous. Its head was low, sniffing the path where I had just walked. This wasn't just curiosity. It was tracking me. My heart pounded in my chest. I've seen bears before, but always from a safe distance, and they've always retreated first. This was different. The way it moved, focused, deliberate, this wasn't a casual encounter. All the survival tips I'd ever heard or read came flooding into my brain. Don't run. Running triggers pursuit. Don't make eye contact. Don't show fear. I took a slow, deep breath, trying to steady the frantic hummingbird inside my chest. Okay. I was still okay. There was distance. I just needed to stay calm and think clearly. My plan was simple: keep moving steadily, create more space, and gradually arc my path away. The main trail, the one back to my car, was about a mile to the east. If I could loop around the bear without it noticing, I could reach that trail and escape. It was risky, but better than continuing in a straight line like some kind of walking beacon. So I walked. What followed was the most intense, mentally draining hour of my life. Every footstep was calculated. Every rustling sound behind me sent lightning through my nerves. I limited how often I looked back, maybe once every 5 minutes. And every time I did, my stomach sank. It was still there. A dark, steady shape between the trees, moving in silence. Always at the same distance. It was patient. It wasn't rushing. It seemed to know it had all the time it needed. What had once been a beautiful forest now felt like a maze closing in around me. Every tree blocked my view, but also blocked its view. A dangerous kind of balance. I kept moving, trying to stay on course with my wide, circling maneuver. But the terrain thickened, narrowing into barely visible game trails. The gap between us was closing. I could hear it breathing now, a deep, guttural huffing that seemed to vibrate through the ground. The tension snapped. It knew I was aware. And it had stopped pretending to be patient. I glanced back over my shoulder. Only 40 yards now. And it was picking up speed, its pace shifting into a low, steady lope. The rational part of me shouted, "Don't run." But instinct overpowered logic. All my careful plans collapsed under a single, primal surge of panic. I ran. I tore through the forest, branches slashing at my face, lungs searing. The path was forgotten. I veered downhill, hoping gravity would carry me faster. Behind me, I heard the sound shift. The bear had broken into a full sprint. It didn't sound like an animal anymore. It sounded like a force of nature. A thunderous, unstoppable thing crashing through the trees, crushing everything in its path. It was faster than I expected. Closer. Too close. I felt it closing in, like a shadow swallowing light. And then I heard a whistle. A clear, simple tune. Just 3 notes, lilting and almost cheerful, like someone casually whistling a folk melody. Doo-dee-doo. It sliced through the chaos. Human. Familiar. Like hope. My desperate mind clung to it. A ranger? A hiker? Someone who had heard the noise. The whistle came again, this time, ahead of me and to the right. Doo-dee-doo. It was a guide. A direction. Without thinking, I turned toward it. I pushed my legs harder, fueled by sudden hope. I scrambled over a fallen log, scanning the trees for color, for a figure, for any sign of help. The bear bellowed behind me now, a deep and furious sound that shattered the woods. Its breath felt like it was right at my back. Help! I screamed. Please! I'm here. The whistling continued, but now it sounded farther. The tune was fainter. My heart sank. Was I going the wrong way? Or was my only hope moving away from me? I pushed harder. My vision tunneled. My chest screamed. The sound of pursuit was right behind me, so close I could almost feel it brush past me. Then I broke through a wall of ferns, and stumbled into a clearing. Everything was still. Unnaturally so. And that's when I saw him. Not a ranger. Not another hiker. Standing in the middle of the clearing was something shaped like a man, but not quite. He was impossibly tall and bone-thin, like someone stretched out beyond what's natural. He wore long, tattered rags that hung from his limbs like shredded cloth. A wide-brimmed hat shadowed most of his face. Long, pale strands of hair hung limp around his shoulders. He stood utterly still, his posture turned slightly away from me, like a puppet caught mid-motion. Slung over one shoulder was a large, weathered sack. It looked heavy. As I skidded to a stop, my mind struggling to comprehend what I was seeing, the sack shifted. Its top flopped open. And something pale slipped out, tumbling to the mossy ground with a soft, wet sound. It looked like a human hand. My mind seized up. I stared at it, unmoving, then looked back at the sack. I could make out strange, indistinct shapes inside. Something curved. Something with jointed edges. Maybe a limb. Maybe a bone. Maybe several. Then came the stories. My grandmother's voice in my head, telling tales from her village, the ones meant to scare children into staying home after dark. The tall, thin man. The sack of bones. The whistling. El Silban. The whistler. He turned his head slowly, and I saw his face beneath the brim of the hat. It was sunken. Hollow. Skin stretched impossibly tight over a skull-like structure. And then he smiled. It wasn't kind. It was wide, unnaturally wide, filled with yellowed, uneven teeth. The grin of something that didn't smile often, and never for the right reasons. He wasn't a savior. He was what the bear had been fleeing from. And I had run straight to him. The whistling, it hadn't been a signal for help. It had been his signal. A hunter's tune. A thunderous growl from behind snapped me out of my trance. The bear exploded into the clearing. Its eyes wild, mouth open, breath heaving. Bits of froth sprayed from its jaws as it came to a sudden stop. It saw me, then saw the figure standing with the heavy sack by his feet. This animal, this towering force of nature, halted. Its massive body trembled with tension, and a deep growl resonated from somewhere low in its chest. It was afraid. Or angry. Or both. The man in rags never moved. That awful smile didn't flicker. Instinct kicked in. Hard. I didn't think. I just dove, head first, into a thick, thorn-covered bush at the clearing's edge. The branches tore at my arms and clothes, but I didn't care. I was hidden. Out of sight. Maybe safe. Through a small gap in the leaves, I watched. What I saw didn't feel real. The whistler stood motionless, his twisted sack resting at his feet. The bear, driven by instinct or sheer rage, rose to its full height, towering, enormous, a living wall of fur and strength. It let out a roar so loud it shook the leaves, then struck, swiping one of its huge paws at the tall figure in front of it. I didn't stay to see what happened next. I couldn't. I scrambled out through the other side of the bush and took off running, away from the clearing, away from both of them. From two nightmares now locked in a contest I wanted no part of. I ran harder than I ever have in my life. I wasn't thinking. I couldn't think. My mind was blank, driven purely by something deeper, raw panic. And then I heard something new. Not a roar. A scream. It was high-pitched. Piercing. Wild. A sound of pure pain and desperation, the kind you never forget once you've heard it. It echoed behind me, ripping through the forest, echoing off the trees. It was the bear. And then, silence. A thick, awful silence. Followed by one, soft, unmistakable sound. Doo-dee-doo. The whistling had started again. But this time, it was different. It was loud. So loud, it sounded like it was right next to my ear. And in that moment, the peak of my terror, a memory returned. A line from the old story my grandmother once told me. A warning whispered in childhood. When the whistle sounds far away, he's right beside you. When it sounds close, he's still far, and you still have a chance to run. I didn't look back. I just ran. I ran toward the memory of the main trail, that tune, close and strangely cheerful, the only thing keeping me anchored. It became my guide. My rhythm. My terrifying soundtrack. As long as it was close, I believed I was gaining ground. It didn't make sense, but nothing about this did. And in that moment, it was all I had. 3 minutes. 4. Maybe forever. I ran with that whistle dancing around me, breathless and trembling, until I broke through the trees. The main trail. I recognized it immediately. My car, less than a mile away. Hope surged. I dared to glance behind me. Just trees. Stillness. But the whistling. It was fainter now. More distant. Which meant only one thing. He was coming. He was finished with the bear. I've never felt fear like that in my life. Not before. Not since. It was pure, total. The kind that takes your breath and your thoughts at the same time. I sprinted. I didn't pace myself. I didn't think. I just ran. I couldn't see him. But I didn't have to. I could feel it, the cold pressure in the air, the crawling dread chasing me step for step. The whistle faded more and more with each second, until it was barely a breath on the wind. Then I saw it. My car. Sunlight hit the windshield, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I nearly screamed. I reached into my pocket, hands shaking, and dropped my keys. Twice. Panic nearly overtook me, but I grabbed them, yanked the door open, threw myself inside. Slam. I locked the doors, jammed the key into the ignition. Click. Roar. The engine started. I didn't check the rearview mirror. I couldn't. I floored the gas, gravel exploding behind me as the car shot forward. I didn't look back. I didn't slow down. Not until I hit pavement. Not until I saw the neon flicker of this rundown motel. And now I'm here. Telling you this. Because I don't know what else to do. How do you explain something like this? How do you tell anyone and expect them to believe it? But I had to try. I had to warn someone. There are things in the woods. Not animals. Not stories. Real things. The old legends. They're not entertainment. They're instructions. And if you're ever lost in the forest, and you hear a whistle in the distance, don't follow it. It's not a friend. It's not a ranger. It's not help. It's a lure. Story 2. My son's imaginary friend knew things he shouldn't. Now I think he was never imaginary. My son, Caleb, started talking to his imaginary friend, Mr. Mapes, when he was 3. At first, it was harmless, cute, even. He'd set an extra spot at dinner or pause to open doors for him. My wife and I laughed it off. Until Mr. Mapes started knowing things. One night, I was putting Caleb to bed when he looked up and said, "Daddy, Mr. Mapes says not to drive to work tomorrow. He says something bad is going to happen." I chuckled, kissed him goodnight, and went downstairs. The next morning, I got a flat tire. Frustrated, I called in late and turned on the TV while waiting for a tow. There had been a major accident on my usual route. Multiple vehicles were involved. It was bad. I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in my hand. I didn't tell my wife. After that, I started paying closer attention. Caleb would say little things. "Mr. Mapes says the neighbors are moving soon. The Johnsons had just finished renovating, why would they leave?" 3 weeks later, they were gone overnight. A for sale sign in the yard. No goodbyes. "Mr. Mapes says the cat's not feeling well." Our cat, Pickles, seemed fine, until 2 days later when she stopped eating. The vet said it was serious. We had to say goodbye. Still, I tried to explain it all away. Kids pick up on things. Maybe Caleb noticed something we didn't. Then things got darker. Caleb changed. He didn't want to play outside anymore. He whispered to empty rooms. He began waking up at night, terrified. One evening, I found him sleepwalking, standing in the hallway, facing the wall. "What are you doing, buddy?" I asked, trying to stay calm. He turned, eyes wide and glassy. "Mr. Mapes says you shouldn't go in the basement anymore." I hadn't mentioned the basement in weeks. I'd been using it to store old furniture and some of my dad's belongings after he passed. I asked Caleb why. He just said. He doesn't like what's down there. Says it smells wrong. I did go down there. I wish I hadn't. At first, it was just musty. But then the smell hit me, something decaying, with a sharp, sour edge. I checked every corner. Then I saw it. In the far corner, behind the water heater, the concrete floor looked wrong. Discolored. Cracked in a circular pattern. Like something had been scorched into it, then patched over. When I touched it, it felt warm. Warm. That night, I dreamed of fire. A room glowing with red candlelight. My father chanting unfamiliar words. A child's cry echoing in the background. I woke up soaked in sweat. The next morning, I called my mom. I asked her if Dad had ever dabbled in anything unusual. There was a long pause. Then she said, "Your father was a complicated man. There were things I chose not to question." I asked more, but she hung up. That night, Caleb came into our room shaking. He climbed into our bed and whispered. "Mr. Mapes says he tried to hold it back, but it's too late now. It's awake." That's when the noises began. From the basement. 3 heavy thuds. Then scratching. Then a low, deep sound that made the walls seem to vibrate. I grabbed a bat and went down. The air was thick. The smell was unbearable. And then, the floor cracked open. Only for a moment. Just long enough for something wet and black to slip out and disappear into the shadows. I ran. We left that night. Didn't even take our belongings. Just left. Caleb doesn't talk about Mr. Mapes anymore. But sometimes, I hear him whispering at night. And when I ask, he says he's talking to the quiet man who protects him now. But sometimes, just sometimes, I think I see something move in the corners of our new home. Long, shifting shadows. And last week, Caleb looked up at me and asked, "Daddy, what did you do to make Mr. Mapes so angry?" I didn't answer. Because I don't know. But I'm afraid I'm about to find out. Story 3. I read the fine print. That's why I'm still alive. You know those end-user license agreements, the ones most people click, agree, on and move on. I read them. At first, it just amused me to be the kind of person who actually read EULAs. Most of them are what you'd expect. We are not responsible for your misuse of the service, you waive your right to sue us, this is our data policy, you agree to give up certain privacy protections. You know, standard stuff. But then, I came across something different. You commit yourself unconditionally to eternal service in a place not of your choosing. I didn't even take it seriously at the time. It was buried in the license agreement of a popular app, 2/3 down in the middle of a block of text. Probably a joke. But if they could slip something like that in, what else might be hidden in there? So I didn't accept it. I wasn't exactly scared, but that little trick definitely made me more motivated to actually read those things. And from then on, I did. Every time. And sometimes. I'd find that line again. Not always, but often enough. Maybe it was some kind of inside joke from someone who wrote one EULA that got recycled into others. After all, most people writing those things probably aren't reading them either. And yet, when I turned down a high-paying job because they wouldn't let me review their data protection agreement ahead of time, I realized I had a problem. I still thought the issue was me, but those digital agreements are everywhere. And reading them all carefully, that eats up a lot of time. Still, I managed. Mostly. Even though it meant I was late to things, tests, rentals, even paying parking tickets, because I was reading the fine print. It started to frustrate my friends, my family, and my employers. Funny how such a small detail can change your whole routine. It became a habit. A compulsion. Not because I believed I was truly in danger, but because I had lost trust in the people writing those agreements. So far, this is probably just a weird story about an annoying personality quirk. And maybe a lot of you have already clicked away. But if you're still here, take the title seriously, it might save more than just your data. About a year after becoming the so-called paranoid EULA reader, I was waiting at a bus stop on a cold morning when I was approached by an old man. He didn't look unusual. Gray jacket, shirt and tie, smoking a pipe with a faintly strange aroma, and trust me, I've smelled all kinds of things at bus stops in my town. "Hey, kid. Got a few minutes to talk about contracts?" That opener wasn't exactly inviting. But it's hard to say you're too busy when you're literally waiting for a bus. The morning was quiet and foggy. It was just us there. He didn't wait for an answer anyway. "Well," he continued, "I mostly just wanted to congratulate you. You beat the system. The old EULA trick's been serving us quite well." That, of course, caught my attention. Because how would this stranger know anything about my EULA obsession? Sure, by that point, I was gaining a bit of a reputation for what might be the world's most boring personality trait, so it wasn't impossible someone could have heard about it. But that explanation didn't occur to me at the time. The old man went on. "Once upon a time, it was hard to get someone to fully commit to serving a, let's say, darker purpose. People had to willingly agree to things they instinctively stayed away from. There had to be an actual deal involved. And most folks knew better than to make those kinds of deals. Everyone had heard of the old, Faustian bargain story ever since Marlowe made it famous. And back then, lawyers protected just as many people as they trapped. He gave a little shrug. But now, people don't read what they're agreeing to. That's progress. We've got more contracts than we know what to do with. So, why are you telling me this, then? I asked. He exhaled slowly, the smoke curling into the cold morning air. Mostly because it doesn't matter anymore. With the numbers we're pulling in these days, what's one more agreement, more or less? Also, I guess I'm just old-fashioned. Sometimes I miss the craft. The subtlety. Back when there was real skill in persuading someone to walk the wrong path. There's an art to undoing a life with just one conversation, and I don't think the younger ones really get that. He paused, then gave me a thin, sharp smile. Or maybe I'm just some old guy messing with you for laughs. Who knows? A little uncertainty makes everything more interesting. Oh, looks like your bus is here. I had never been so relieved to see a city bus in my life. I practically jumped in before the doors were fully open. But just before they closed, I heard the man call out behind me. Take care of yourself. It took me a few stops before I dared to look back. But when I finally did, the bus stop was swallowed in mist. Completely gone. So, as you can probably guess, I've been thinking about this a lot since then. I still don't know who, or what, that person was. If he was just some eccentric prankster, he never asked me for money. Never invited me to join anything. Didn't try to convert me. And while my obsession with reading Eula's wasn't a total secret, it definitely wasn't public knowledge either. And I've never seen him again. He didn't board the bus, and if he was waiting for one, he'd have had to wait an hour more. That's a long time just to play mind games with a stranger. I'd been to that stop before, sure. But not regularly. As you can imagine. I've gone full off-grid now. Or as close to it as I can manage. Because maybe he was just some random guy. But what if he wasn't? I've gone from cautious, to paranoid. And let me tell you, it's shocking how many daily interactions now require you to click accept on some agreement. Some of you might be thinking, why not just move somewhere remote? But even trips to remote places, yeah, they require EULAs. And I have a medical condition. I need access to a pharmacy. So, no Antarctica for me. I've tried to figure out what the right move is. But the truth is, if I were to throw away what's left of my life trying to go public or cause a scene about this, that would probably be a win for him. Still, he mentioned Faust. And maybe that matters. So I remembered this old Reddit account of mine, one I hadn't touched in years. The username oddly fits now. I reviewed the terms again. They seem okay, but I can't guarantee the ones I agreed to back then were the same. Either way, what's done is done. This might be the only open line of communication I still have that could actually reach someone out there, someone who'll believe me. If I save even one person from that stranger, or even if I don't, at least when the time comes, I can say I tried. So, whoever you are, wherever you are, read your EULAs. For my sake. For yours. It might be more important than you think. Are you still here? Then you're one of us now. Like, subscribe, and return tomorrow. The horror never stops.